I'm Nicole Nalepa, and you're listening to Mommyhood Unscripted, real talk about moms for moms. I hope you're well rested for this next episode. We are talking all things sleep, something we all need, something I hope you're getting enough of, but chances are you're not. I mean, we struggle with it, us parents. And the struggle, as I'm learning, really does continue after your kids even leave the house. You know, there's such things called menopause, sleep apnea. There are so many different things out there that keep us up. But there are also so many great experts like Dr. Pedram Navab out there who can set us straight and help us regain that sleep that we so rightfully deserve. Dr. Pedram Navab is a sleep expert, a board-certified neurologist with 17 years of experience in the sleep medicine field. He's a fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. He serves on multiple advocacy committees. He supports legislative issues that impact the overall sleep medicine field. He's actually a lobbyist against the Sunshine Protection Act right now in DC, which I'm sure you've heard a lot of. So we kind of got his take on that. He's also an author. His most recent book is Sleep Reimagined, The Fast Track to a Revitalized Life. Oh, that sounds so amazing. All right. Without further ado, Dr. Pedram Navab, welcome to Mommyhood Unscripted. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nicole. This sounds like a great podcast.
I think I got about 3 hours of sleep last night because my 7-month-old is teething and I think we have to sleep train her. I have a 4-year-old who had a nightmare right when we finally got her down. So how ironic to have the sleep expert on today.
I know you guys probably don't even get enough sleep too, based on your schedule, and then having this daylight saving time change, and then your infant and so forth. So yeah, I guess it's very problematic.
Yeah, it's tough. I've always been someone who can operate on not a lot of sleep. You know how some people say, I need my 8 hours of sleep. If I get 6 hours, I'm great. That's like 8 hours to me. I guess I'll ask you my first question, and maybe it's a little personal too, but
sure.
Is that healthy? And is sleep comparable depending on the person? You know, can some people operate on minimal sleep versus people who, you know, need that 8 to 10 hour spot?
Yeah, great question. So the American Academy of Sleep Medicine recommends 7 hours of sleep. That's kind of the optimal number. Some obviously need more and some need less. I mean, I think 6.5 is sort of the sweet spot. But, you know, it really depends on how you feel when you wake up in the morning. If you wake up feeling refreshed without an alarm clock, that basically implies that you are getting the sleep that you need. So there are short sleepers and long sleepers, but for the most part, most people need around 6.5 or 7 hours of sleep. But again, if you feel pretty good when you wake up in the morning, I don't know how you feel, that's a good marker.
It depends on the day, but yeah, no, totally.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, obviously with that recommendation, I'm sure it's, you know, we tread lightly in the sense that depending on the season of someone's life, right? Whether they're going through menopause, whether they're a parent, a new parent, you know, whether they have some health issues or back problems that's keeping them up at night. It really depends, I guess, right?
Yeah. You know, the most common reason that people have difficulty going to sleep or staying asleep is just anxiety and worry. And the best treatment for that is cognitive behavioral therapy, because it teaches you to think about restructuring your thoughts, your cognition. Most people think about, well, if I don't get enough sleep, I'm going to be a wreck at work. I'm going to get into a car accident. I'm going to lose my job. But if you think about it a little bit more realistically and think about the probability of those things happening, it's really minimal. And what you can do is write that stuff down before you go to bed to kind of think about all these possibilities that you think are going to happen, but that never occur. And that relieves some of your anxiety about that.
Wow.
So I think that could be helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to try that tonight because aside from my kids keeping me up, of course, it's those thoughts. I call it, you know, like my monkey mind is racing, you know, and
yeah, exactly. And it's one of those times when we're asleep, we have all the time in the world, right? During the day, we're constantly running, doing things, but at night, when we're sleeping, we're by ourselves. So we have all the time to ruminate, which is going to be problematic when you want to relax. So that's why it's a great idea to kind of journal all this stuff beforehand, put it onto paper, and kind of remove it from your thought. And that kind of gets into one of our the ways to help with sleep during daylight saving time or standard time is to kind of unwind. Sleep is not like a light switch. You need to kind of dim it. And anything you can do like 90 minutes before, whether that's like meditating, listening to soft music, taking a hot bath, which helps with sleep, all of those things will help you ease into sleep. So that's what I would recommend. Just 90 minutes before, try to get yourself into that rhythm. No electronics, no TV, no work, and just kind of get yourself into that nice, relaxed sleep.
Yeah, that space that you want to be in so you can sleep, fall into a gentle slumber. And I'm glad you brought up the electronics. Obviously, that's such a big question. And, these things are by our bedstands. It's like we can't go anywhere without them tethered to us. There are another child, if you will.
And it's the most problematic because the blue light is so strong that decreases your melatonin, which is a hormone that you need to fall asleep significantly, even a little bit of light. I tell my patients to just leave the phone and any electronics outside of the room. You're going to have a withdrawal for about a week, but you'll realize that it's so comforting to not have to respond to calls or look at emails and just tell your friends, like, I'm not going to be available at a certain time. And I also tell my patients to set an alarm for when you want to go to bed, not only for waking up, but when you want to go to bed. So if you're watching Netflix and there's an episode that's coming up, if your alarm goes off, just turn that off. So not only for getting up, but for going to bed, have an alarm.
Yeah, it's so enticing when you see that next episode loading. You're like, oh, I think I can hold on for one more.
Don't do that. Don't, because it's gonna disrupt your sleep, and you're not gonna feel that great in the morning.
Right.
And what have you accomplished? Really nothing. That episode can totally wait for you.
Yeah, it will be there.
Don't do it.
Yeah,
it
your
will
phone
be there.
will be there. The messages, the email, it'll be there. Don't worry about it.
That's a great point. It will be there. Yeah, for sure.
I think it was Ariana Huffington was talking about how she feels so successful because she has finally, mastered keeping electronics out of the bedroom. And she said it changed her life. And I remember hearing her talk about that and going, I want to strive for that. So many of us depend on our phones, though, as an alarm clock. Do you suggest your patients just have a good old fashioned alarm clock?
Analog clock, an analog clock that's far away from your bedroom, turned around so you can never look at the clock. You could set the alarm so that the alarm goes off if you need it, but I don't want any of my patients to look at the clock when they wake up in the morning or wake up in the middle of the night, because that just fosters more anxiety. It's always going to be later than you think it is. So why do you even need that? You don't need it. If the alarm goes off, you know that you have to go to work. But other than that, just try to go back to sleep if you can.
Okay. Wow, that's a great tip. It's funny. We have an analog clock that's plugged in. Then we, of course, have our phones. And then I have, my Apple Watch, which if it's not on me tracking how little sleep I usually get, it's in a charger across the room.
I would try to minimize that to maybe 2. So if one doesn't go off, the other one goes off.
Yeah.
But, you've got your own system. But that's what I would recommend. Just do not look at the clock. Don't look at it until you have to wake up.
Okay. So daylight savings, let's get right into that. Even though it is past right now, this episode is coming up the end of March, April. So many mom friends of mine, we've been talking about how we're feeling this like collective hungover feeling, not because of alcohol, but because of lack of sleep. And our kids, they have not adjusted in the way that we always hope. Every single year it comes around, we
Yeah.
think, oh, it's okay. They'll still be in bed for that extra hour. Nope. They lose that hour just like we do. Why is that?
So daylight saving time is not compatible with our natural circadian rhythm. So we've got our own body clock that basically is regulated by the setting and the rising of the sun. And that's very different than conventional man-made time, which is what daylight saving time is, right? It's not natural. It's something that we kind of made up to conserve energy, which it really didn't do much anyway. They enacted this in 1973. It only permanent daylight saving time, and it only lasted for less than a year. So we know it really doesn't work. So it's not in tune with our natural circadian rhythm. So our metabolism and everything is linked to the rising and setting of the sun. Daylight saving time skews that so that when you wake up in the morning, you're not getting the sunlight that you need. And the body needs that sunlight to reset itself. It's kind of like a natural alarm clock. When the
Mm-hmm.
body, when it goes through your eyes to the brain in a portion called the hypothalamus. And when your brain sees that light, it it thinks like the morning has started. Not only does it make your mood better, you need that sun to create serotonin, which is a natural antidepressant. So a lot of people who have seasonal affective disorder, which I do have, or anxiety or depression, they need that sun in the morning. The sun in the later in the afternoon or late at night, which occurs with daylight saving, is not going to help them. You need that early sun in the morning. So what I would recommend, as soon as the sun comes out, go outside for half an hour without sunglasses. Because again, the light has to hit your retina to go up to this pathway that goes up to your hypothalamus to the suprachiasmatic nucleus and sets everything up. I know it sounds kind of like science fiction in a way, but it really works like that. So as soon as you get up, get the light. But that's why daylight saving time is not a good proposition, because you're not getting that initial sun in the morning, which we all need. It's even more problematic for kids because kids have a natural tendency to want to stay up later. They have what we call delayed sleep phase syndrome. Their sleep time, for the most part, is more delayed. And when they have to go to bed early and rise up early, the parents pay the price. Not only do they pay the price, but the parents pay the price as well. So it's skewed in all sorts of ways. And when they wake up in the morning, it's so dark, and if they have to take a bus, I mean, you can imagine the nightmare.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I can speak to nightmares. Like I was telling you, my son had a nightmare last night. And I think and even his pediatrician had said, all the stimuli and the new exposure now that he's in school, that's also going to play into how he sleeps, right? How well he sleeps just in
Yeah,
this stage of his life. So,
sure.
yeah, it's really
Yeah,
interesting how the brain works.
yeah, no, so it usually takes about a week for us to acclimate to daylight saving time. The day after daylight saving time, they've done numerous studies. There are more car accidents. They go up by 6%. They recently did a study where they showed that people have more admissions for atrial fibrillation, which is a kind of heart arrhythmia after daylight saving time.
Oh,
And we know
wow.
there's more like heart attacks and strokes right after, because it's out of sync with your body's circadian clock, and that is so important because evolutionary wise, we've been our life has been dictated by the rising and setting of the sun. This is daylight saving time is kind of an artificial time that our body has to get adjusted to, so it doesn't work with us. So the proposition of the Sunshine Protection Act that it will help us. I mean, I love having the sun in the evening too. I mean, don't get
Right.
me wrong. I love going out there, but it does hurt us because we have problems going to sleep because of the sun. We need less sun in the evening, right? We need to acclimate our brain to get less sun. to create that more melatonin. We need
Mm-hmm.
darkness. And when it doesn't get that, we have problems sleeping. We wake up feeling groggy. Yeah.
Now, I know you've been trying to lobby with Congress against the Sunshine Protection Act, correct?
Correct.
So what are the proponents of it saying on that side? What are the arguments that you're hearing, that you're saying, I don't agree with that?
So the big proponent, and Marco Rubio from Florida, the senator, his real argument is that it spurs the economy. There are more people out in the evening because the sun is out, and the economy gets spurred because people are out and about, they're eating, drinking, whatnot. And so the economy being kind of spurred by that is one of their big arguments. The other argument, which is actually accurate, is there's less crime too when there's daylight saving time. The studies have shown that, but the biggest argument for them is the economic boom that would occur with daylight saving time or permanent daylight saving time. And our opposition is, yes, that may occur, but the problem is at the detriment of the body, of everyone's body, with more heart attacks, with more strokes, with more depression and more insomnia. So if you actually take that into account, the economic argument doesn't work. For someone who has insomnia and can't get up to go to work, days work is missed, and there's economic repercussions for that as well. So if they look at it indirectly, that economic argument does not work at all, right? I mean, because there's going to be so many health consequences and people not getting to work and people being depressed that it really is it doesn't work.
Well, and it's interesting, from a doctor's standpoint, and you see both sides of the aisle, obviously trying to work with the economy and, keep that going, especially coming out of the pandemic. But yet, like you said, the health aspect, like, hello, it's like the chicken or egg that comes first, which is it? We have to start with the human body first before we can start feeling good and start getting out there. I see your point.
Right. And like I said, in 1973, the daylight saving time became permanent, but it was repealed in November of 1974 because people were just complaining that their kids had to wake up early in the morning with no sun. There were more accidents when they were waiting for the bus. I mean, that's huge. Fatalities because it's so dark outside that they don't feel safe to go out there. It doesn't work. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But we're actually lobbying for this in April. We're going up to the Hill in 3 weeks to kind of educate the House and the Senate about the health repercussions of this. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll definitely, you'll have to keep us posted on that for sure.
We'll do. Yeah.
So what advice do you have out there for parents who, just are struggling and finding themselves, in this particular season of motherhood, parenthood, fatherhood, where it just feels like it's never ending and it feels like the tunnel is so far away to actually living a normal life like we had before kids in terms of our sleep?
Yeah. Well, talking back to daylight saving time, what you want to do, we can kind of take that first. Things that you can do to prepare yourself for a time change would be to replicate what that would look like. So maybe 4 days beforehand, start by going to bed 15 minutes earlier because you're losing an hour, right?
Right.
So if you start 4 days before and go to bed 15 minutes earlier each day, that would help you acclimate. You could also do that for your meal times as well, like have a meal 15 minutes earlier, and that will help you adjust slowly. If you wanted to do it much slower, you could do it 6 days and 10 minutes kind of each day. So going to bed 10 minutes earlier and earlier and earlier. And that's what happens with jet lag as well. Like when people want to go somewhere like Europe, I tell them to kind of approximate the time that they're going to be in Europe and do things that way 3 or 4 days before they go there. So it's kind of no different than, traveling or jet lag. That's basically what you want to do. You want to simulate that 4 days before you actually hit that new time change.
Mm.
But with regard to any tips about parents and kids, I mean, I think you just have to kind of be mindful of, sleep may not be normalized for a while, especially because you don't know, when kids are going to sleep or whatnot. The only thing you can do is to create really good sleep habits that we were discussing. Make sure you make sleep a priority, because it really does affect your mood when you wake up. If you feel refreshed, you're able to help your kids, you're able to be more in tune. So if you give that a priority by taking the electronics out, by making sure you relax and get a good night's sleep, that will help with all aspects of life. Sleep really segues into your waking life. There shouldn't be any difference between a sleep and wake state. It's really one continuum.
So you just want to make that transition as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, very smooth. Yeah, just like it's not going to be like, oh, I'm working right now, and then I'm done with work. I'm going to turn off the light switch and I'm going to go to bed. It doesn't work like that. You really got to smoothly segue into it. Here in California, there's, obviously there's hopefully going to be, there's going to be sun in the evening. You should really wear sunglasses when you see the sun. So even if it's 6 p.m. and it's sunny outside, start getting yourself ready for the dark. Always wear the sunglasses, even in like 7 p.m. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but your body needs that little gradual change. And it gets more melatonin that way when it sees the dark. So always wear sunglasses in the evening.
Thank you for that tip. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
I never heard that.
Do you remember that song, I wear my
I
sunglasses at
wear
night?
my sunglasses
So
at night. He was
you
onto
should do
something.
that. Right. You should do that.
Oh my
That
God.
does help. So my real advice is just to kind of transition. Sleep is not like an off and off switch. It's a continuum, basically.
I was also going to ask, making up for lost sleep. Third shifters, even on my shift, which is kind of like a third shift. Before kids, I used to nap, and I used to think in my head, okay, I slept 4 or 5 hours last night. I'm getting tired around this time. I'm going to nap, and hopefully it'll make up. And if I put this, amount of time I napped and then the amount of time I slept last night and put it together, by golly, I have 6 or 7 hours. Great. Call it a day. Can you
Right.
ever make up sleep though? Is that a myth?
Yeah. So the sleep debt, you can't really ever make up sleep, but the way you've done it, which is basically sleeping and taking a nap, that's not bad. You can add them together on that day. So I tell my patients a 20 or 30-minute nap when you feel tired is great, especially if it's done in the early afternoon, like 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. You never want to go past 5 p.m. because then that disrupts your sleep inertia, your drive to sleep the following night. So you're actually doing fine if you're able to take a 30-minute nap in the early afternoon. You can kind of link that to your sleep, kind of what they do in Europe with siestas, where they close down for, from 12 to 2. That's fine. What I would not recommend is that you're sleeping 4 hours from Monday through Friday, and then you think on the weekend you can make up all that lost sleep.
Right.
That doesn't work that way, because what's happening is you're paying the price on those nights where you're not getting the good sleep. It has repercussions for your body. Right. So you can't do it that way, but you can do it during the day. If you take the day as a whole and kind of break it up, that's fine with a nap. And Japanese societies do that all the time before going to work late at night for shift work. They take a 30, 45 minutes nap, or even at work, they have little rooms designed for people to take a nap. So that's completely fine. Completely fine. So
Yeah.
if you're doing that, that's great. Just don't make it more than 30 minutes and keep it in the early afternoon
Okay.
hours.
So, I mean, at the time, again, before kids, I was, sleeping like 2 hours sometimes in chunks. So you're saying if you have the tendency to go past 30 minutes, maybe set an alarm?
Yes,
Okay.
perfect. Yeah, set an alarm. And some people actually even recommend, and it doesn't work for me, to drink coffee right before you take the nap.
Oh,
Because by the time you wake up, the coffee, the caffeine will have started to work and you feel more refreshed. I can't do that. I started doing that, but the coffee itself just makes me more alert. Just the fact that I know that I'm drinking it. But
right.
for some people, it actually works. They drink coffee, they take a nap, and they wake up and they feel refreshed. But it
Wow.
doesn't work for me. But that's
Yeah.
one way to do it.
Even though I'm on this crazy schedule, I joke around, but it's true. I don't think caffeine has any effect on me. I've actually been drinking decaf since I had my daughter, and it's just the habit of smelling coffee and, that kind of
Sure,
makes me alert. So I guess
sure.
that's a testament to what you just said.
Yeah. And one thing that I do tell patients is really try to stay away from alcohol before you go to bed because it's got a short half-life. It'll put you to sleep, but then you wake up throughout the night to urinate because the diuretic effect and also you, the short half-life. And it's really not good for you. Studies have shown that. So try to minimize that as much as you can.
And
And it diminishes REM sleep, which is a stage of sleep that's important for memory consolidation.
is there a certain minimum amount of REM sleep you should be getting? I mean, I track my sleep on my watch and, sometimes it fluctuates and I'm always left wondering, what is the sweet spot for REM sleep?
So the normal amount of REM sleep is 25% of your total sleep. The most sleep that you're going to get is stage two sleep. That's about 45%. That's the light stage of sleep. So most people will get about 45% of that light sleep. And
Okay.
then slow wave sleep, which is the deeper sleep, is 25%, and REM sleep is 25%. But I wouldn't be caught up with the numbers, Nicole, because you can track it and see how you feel with REM or without REM. But don't think I mean, you need that because that kind of creates more performance anxiety on your part. So try to get as much sleep as you can, but don't focus so much on if you're getting REM or slow wave sleep. Now, if you are getting good quality sleep, you're sleeping 7 hours and still feeling tired, then there is like organic reason for it. Like if you have sleep apnea or restless legs, then you need to come and see the sleep doctor, especially if you're snoring and having any pauses in breathing, because then your sleep quality may be impaired as well.
hmm So that's one of the red flags, or those are the red flags to kind of be on the lookout for. And I mean, is too much sleep a bad thing? I've heard mixed things on this. I'm curious to get your take on that.
Studies have shown that if you sleep more than 9 hours, or in some studies, even more than 8 hours, it can be detrimental to you. Those studies could be a little skewed because a lot of patients who have like heart issues or arthritis need more sleep. And so if they're sleeping in bed longer, their health outcome is already bad to begin with. So it's kind of hard to say, but I would recommend really to stay with 7 hours of sleep
Okay.
because you want to get out there and be active as well. Lying in bed, although you think you're getting better sleep, doesn't necessarily help a whole lot. I think you should get 7 hours of sleep, wake up, do what you need to do, be active, and then kind of do the things. I don't think there's a real benefit for sleeping more than 7 hours, 8 hours, but I think 7 hours is actually very optimal.
Okay. And for those of
Yeah.
us like myself who's struggling to get there to 7 hours again, or there for the first time in some cases, the saying, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Are we taking years off of our life if we aren't getting that necessarily, or getting a minimal amount like what I'm getting right now, I guess?
I mean, you are, but again, if you feel pretty good, your body may have kind of adjusted to it, so that's fine. But really, I think if you follow the tips that I gave and you're able to get, even 30 minutes more sleep to at least 6.5 or 7 hours, 6.5. One study actually showed that 6.5 is a sweet spot of sleep. I would probably say 7 is more close to it. But if you're able to break that up with naps, like you seem to be doing, that's fine. So try to opt for that, and I think you will be able to get a little bit more.
Hey, 6.5 feels attainable. And even like you said, kind of inching
Yeah,
up, transitioning, right? Up to 7. It's all about the
sure.
transition with sleep from what you're
It's
telling
all
me.
it's all about the transition. Yeah, and the naps are fine. I completely recommend that.
Okay.
That's what especially given your hectic schedule for
Right.
sure.
And the infamous sleep when the baby sleeps, right? Which
Right.
sometimes works and sometimes does not work. But, I always look at, motherhood and the stage that you're in. You're in it for a fleeting moment. When you're in the midst of it, it feels like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? Or, oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't end. But then it changes before you realize. And, when it comes
Yeah.
to the negative impacts of sleep, I always say, well, this is a stage and this shall pass,
It shall pass. But I do have patients that once that stage passes, they're so ingrained in their old sleep habits that it's hard to kind of let go of the new ones. You develop
Mm,
all sorts of maladaptive behaviors. So you don't necessarily want to think of it like that either. Try to foster the really good habits now. So when that stage is done, you can transition much more smoothly to the other one as
mhm.
well.
Okay. And does
Like you
that
said, it's all about transitions.
exactly, exactly. And do your sleep tips apply to those who are going through menopause as well? Or are there any other extra tips really quick that you may have for those women?
Yeah, so menopause, we know that the incidence of insomnia increases significantly during menopause, not only because of hot flashes, but because of the body's, estrogen and progesterone. The incidence of sleep apnea also increases. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're really not sure why it is, there is a high incidence of sleep apnea in that age group at that stage. So make sure you get that checked out with the sleep study. Um, really no particular advice. I would just recommend to be aware of it. If you want to reduce the hot flashes, you can go to your OB-GYN and see what works best for you. But just, and the other thing is to know that you're not alone, that a lot of women experience insomnia during menopause because oftentimes you think you're kind of alone, but if you talk to a lot of women, they do experience insomnia during menopause. A little bit of melatonin actually is also great. Something like a pure melatonin that's long lasting may also help with the insomnia during menopause as
Okay.
well.
Oh, good
So
advice.
that's what I would say. Yeah.
We have listeners of all ages, so I'm sure that age group is certainly going to appreciate that. And Dr. Navab, how can we get in touch with you?
But you can find me everywhere. I'm on social media, Instagram, and so forth. Just type in my name and you'll you'll see me.
Wonderful. Well, I know you're a busy guy, and I know you had to get up early for this. So, for the sleep expert, Dr. Navab, thank you very much for
Yeah,
doing
you're
that.
welcome. You're welcome. It was very nice speaking with you, Nicole. I think you've got a really good sleep acumen. So I don't think you're going to have a lot of issues. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe to Mommyhood Unscripted. Share it with your friends, too. It's available on iTunes, Google Play, Roku, and everywhere else you get your podcast. I'm Nicole Nalepa. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, Mama, you're doing great.